Okay, so now we're going to drill down into the more granular aspects of what does it mean to develop customers versus develop products. So when we zero in on customer development as a methodology to innovate, to build, to solve for X, to change the world, we want to unpack customers because I know that can be oftentimes a tripping point, especially for engineers and folks that are interested in the humanities or social behavioral sciences. If you have friends that are studying business, customer, oh yeah, that's the holy grail. We want to sell something, but it's really important. I just want to take a quick moment to, demystify or to make it less concerning that we actually have the term customer in there for someone perhaps like you that's STEM-minded or engineering-minded. So customer is really important that we do attach that kind of business model to that terminology, because if we do in fact create something that is really powerful for this constituency, a single end user or a group of people or an organization or an entire community or nation, we want to be able to sustain and in many cases scale that innovation that we've built in the lab for that constituency. So the only way for us to do that is to leverage the power of entrepreneurship and attaching a repeatable, scalable business model onto the prototype product or service that we're going to develop for them. So in that case, you actually do need some funding to come back to your development operation, your engineering firm, right? So if you don't create something of value, nobody's going to be willing to pay for it. So we always have to have that paying customer in the equation, if you will, because without he or she, we're not going to be able to really impact the world the way that we want to. So don't be thrown off by the term customer, but it will become important as you continue to move through this process. So don't be afraid of customers. That's all part of the process. Whether you want to do a nonprofit model, a more than profit, kind of like Tom's Shoes, or a pure for-profit model to deliver your product or service out into the world, it's all based on a very key actor in this equation, and that's the payer, the paying customer. So if we look at the different key constituents within that loaded term of customer, first and foremost, many of you are going to be working with a type of person who we might call the end user. So somebody that is actually interfacing with the prototype that you're hypothesizing, the product or the service that you want to build for them. In some cases, that user is also the payer. So you can think of probably many products, right? So here's a bottle of water. I'm not only the user of this water, but I also paid for it. So then the business model becomes pretty cut and dry. If the water is not valuable to me as the user, I'm going to go and seek a different solution. But in many cases, if you're working in the nonprofit sector or the community sector, I might get to use some product that you develop or service that you develop for free, and then some other institution or organization pays for that. Another common example there is Google, right? So we could debate this all day long, but primarily use Google for free, and then advertisers pay for that service to be delivered. So there's got to be basically a value proposition to not only me, the end user, but also the advertisers that find value in conveying their message to us while we're on Google. So right in the middle there, you see also a group called influencers. So sometimes there's a group of people in between users and payers, and this is not meant to be any kind of equation. This is a very fuzzy social science, but at the end of the day, you as an engineer, you have to understand that when you're developing new products or services based on your talents, these end users and these people that are going to validate the usefulness of your product or service in the real world are extremely important at this very early stage of the process. So let's not get too far off base here. You want to introduce the problem that these users, influencers, or payers have and describe that within their specific setting. So if you're solving for a pain point that you have, you could actually count yourself as a possible user or potential payer for whatever it is that you want to build. We had Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple, on campus recently, and he said, he built the first personal computer, the Apple for himself because he was frustrated with the options that existed at the time. So no shame in that. Just be very aware that customer might mean different archetypes. So let's talk about that next.